Hello, and welcome to Navigating to Success. I'm your host, Jeff Carlton, certified focal point business and executive coach, and I'm extremely happy to be joined by Bill Stoddart today of 45 North Partners from Bozeman, Montana. He's got a very interesting background, coming from a teacher to now a entrepreneur that's dealing with some pretty big projects and some pretty interesting background. So I will toss the ball over to Bill, as I always do, to tell us about himself and tell him about North 45 or 45 North.
Gosh, thanks, Jeff. I really appreciate the intro and the opportunity to be on your show here. So yeah, you're right. I my background is both in education, and then the other side of my family is entrepreneurship. So my mom's family was all educators, and my first father's family was all business folks. And so I think I had, kind of that, I don't even know how you'd call it, but, sort of two types of blood in my system from the beginning. And I think the theme through all of that is a love of learning, because if you don't love learning, you're not going to really be a successful entrepreneur in the long run. And you're not going to be a good teacher either, to be perfectly honest. So I think that's a natural course, or thread that runs through everything. 45 North and my switch from teaching to finance came about in 2006 when I realized that, I had built what I thought was a good model for teaching, in particular the AP US history and AP government courses that I was teaching, and felt like my students were going to be looking at me in 15 years saying, why didn't that guy retire 15 years ago? He was actually a decent teacher back then. So there was that running through the back of my head. And I think I kind of had a little bit of an entrepreneurial itch that I wasn't quite aware of at the time. But as it turned out, that became now sort of the thing that I just continue to, it continues to push me forward. And specifically, I went into finance through the financial advisor, financial consultant door. D.A. Davidson was my first employer and worked with them for 5 years. Great company, super supportive of me all the way through. There were a few things that I felt like I wanted to do that were, a little different than what the company was maybe wanting me to do. And so I decided I'd start the predecessor to 45 North called North Fork Financial. And then had the crazy good fortune of receiving a junk email from a young inheritor who said, I want to give all my money away. Can you help me do that? And once I figured out it wasn't, an
You
Algerian
still have
thing.
his email address?
I do. Yeah. Yep. They became a client, and they really became the basis for 45 North. So that's the quick version.
So he pulled you in because he wanted to give the money away in a philanthropical perspective.
Well, that was part of it. And it was really kind of interesting because, we had been doing, sort of main-ish stream advisory work for clients, helping them with their retirement planning and, managing their investments for them as advisors. And yeah, this individual said, hey, I actually want to take all my money out of the public markets and only do private investment. And it
Okay.
was, a couple extra zeros and a couple extra commas that made that kind of thing possible for them,
Sure.
and gave us the opportunity to not only build upon another business that I'm part of called homestake.com, but also gave me the ability to really learn finance kind of from the ground up. And as I mentioned to you in our pre-conversation, I'm, working with a company, helping them build out their financial models so that ultimately they can talk to investors about, their growth plans.
Well, and especially in Montana, that's an incredible thing, and it's kind of a passion of mine, is to grow business and entrepreneurship um, in what nobody else understands is really largely a rural agrarian state still.
Yep.
Um, but we got really smart people, we got really great people, and we got really, for the most part, friendly laws. So if we can get good, ethical, responsible businesses in, um, that's a good growth model for Montana and our community. So I appreciate that a lot. Um, so as the founder, tell me about the scale of 45 North. How big are you? How many people work for you? Or are
Yep.
you
Great question. So maybe starting with North Fork. North Fork became an investment advisory firm with $100 million under management. There were six of us together working on that company. I've brought in a couple partners since, and we've kind of cleaned that up a little bit, tightened up that business. 45 North is just myself and another colleague who's kind of the operations director. And so she and I together kind of managed about a $30 million portfolio of different types of investments. Not all of them in the private markets, but we are moving toward there over time. Yeah.
fantastic? So, um, how do you balance the entrepreneurial side of, um, because there's a difference between creating a company and running a business. Where where do you where do you fit? How much, if you want to throw it into a percent, but how do you balance the difference between um running a company and running the business?
Well, I think most entrepreneurs would recognize that you do both 100% of the time, right? So, there's
But you're a
there's never enough.
200% guy.
That's
I
exactly right. Like because you never have
don't
enough
want to
time.
invest with you if you're a 200% guy.
I mean, like most folks recognize, there's never enough time to do the work of the business. And then if you're doing all that, there's never enough time to work on the business at the same time, and so I think the balancing act, if you're really trying to think ahead of it, which people who are really good at it can do, you're not just putting out fires, right?
Right.
You're dedicating time to saying, and maybe even calendar it, right? That says, hey, look, I'm going to give, you know, 3 hours every Friday morning, or, this hour slot, or every day, or whatever it may be, to different parts of the business. There's always, if you're in a service business, there's always client demands. You can never, kind of keep up with all the emails that are coming in, because it's just constant, right?
Right.
Um, and you're always trying to say, what can we do better to stay not only relevant and important to our clients, but also, to make sure that we're seeing the field and making sure that we're positioned correctly, we're pricing correctly, we're, doing all our compliance work, all the different things, that are associated in my case with a financial business. But that's I think that answer is different from everybody for everybody. But I also, as you alluded in the question itself, it's critically important. Like, you really have to recognize that you can't only work in the business, you have to work on the business if you're going to be successful, and vice versa.
Yeah, you stole kind of the next question is how much time do you spend, or the other version of the question is how much time do you spend working on your business as opposed to working for your business?
Yeah.
And I would say that the block scheduling method on the calendar and I'll throw this out for folks that might watch this. You have to hold yourself account when you're your own boss. You got to hold yourself accountable, um, and you have to block schedule to do what Brian Tracy calls "eat that frog." You know, it's
Mhm.
the stuff you don't want to do,
Yeah.
um, but it has to get done. And if you have the discipline, put it on the calendar, it's extremely helpful. Having said that, how do you balance that with your personal life? Do you block schedule just your work, or do you block schedule your personal life?
You know, unfortunately, the personal life just tends to.
I feel bad because I told you there was no stump the chump questions, but I just threw you one
Oh,
tonight.
good. No, you're all good. I mean, the reality is that, when you're an entrepreneur, you're always thinking about your business. You're always thinking about the thing that you have to do because, you've got a client demand or a request, or, you're trying to stay ahead of something. So, what I've found over the years is that it's kind of, it varies, right? There's a little bit of a seasonal part to it.
Yep.
Where for me personally, I need to have the ability to just let the things process through my head while I'm not sitting in front of, the spreadsheet. I can't really do a very good job at processing while I'm watching, hockey games and things like that, which I love to do. Um, so I get myself out and, like walk the dog, go for a run or something like that, or bike ride. If I can get an hour or two every 2 to 3 days, or even if sometimes it's only once or twice a week, um, I'm a much happier person. I'm a better dad. And it just really then helps me be that much more efficient in the work that I'm doing too, because I'm not just spinning my wheels because my brain's all saturated, and just full of all the things that, I'm doing and not doing. Because for me personally, and especially now that I'm, getting a little older here in my mid 50s, it's like, wow, there's just only so much RAM. Like I can't, it seemed like I used to be able to keep everything, going all at once, like juggling all the chainsaws and everything else. Um, and it wasn't a problem. Now I find like I do have to give myself a little bit of a mental break, or I just don't, I'm just not very effective, you know.
No, and
Uh,
I think that I've experienced that too. I think that's a great bit of advice. And the other one that I tell a lot of my clients often is, and everything that I tell my clients is something that I learned the hard way, which was the only people who are going to remember that you worked late are your kids and your spouse in
yeah,
20 years.
that's right.
And
Yep.
so you got to keep that healthy work-life balance. It's incredibly important.
Yeah, you don't
Um,
want Cats in the Cradle to be your theme song, right?
Now, yeah, that's boy, yeah, I've made the mistake plenty of times. What does North 45 look like in 12 or 36 months? Are you growing? Are you happy where you're at?
Yeah,
What do you
I
think
mean,
next?
so our primary client, we've deployed the capital that they allocated to us. And so we're kind of managing that portfolio and transitioning that primary relationship. So I've been doing some consulting work with businesses, again, kind of helping them, sort of with their capital planning and strategy, and building out their financial models. I've been working with some other investors, institutional foundation size and type, to help them think about their investing plans and programs, helping them with, building out investment policy statements that are aligned with their program work, that kind of thing. Um, and, continue to, be excited about working with new clients, in whatever capacity. The other thing that I've spent a ton of time doing is, again, with my partner, Jeff Batten. He and I started this business back in 2017, called Homestake. And basically the thesis there is that, small, medium-sized businesses in our communities are sort of the key ingredient to,
Oh, I
having
think they're the heart and
a
soul.
viable community. Yeah,
They're the
right. Like,
heartbeat. They're the
yeah,
heartbeat of a strong economy and a
that's
happy,
right.
healthy community. I mean,
That's
everybody
exactly
wants a
right.
coffee shop. They want the
Well,
mom and
right.
pop.
Yeah, and and it's also those ones that you don't hear about, right? It's the metal fab guy, it's the HVAC business, it's the, you know, business that can benefit from some efficiencies and maybe some scale. Maybe they need a new facility, maybe they need to manage their inventory differently. Like those businesses, and the ability for those founders and founding teams to control that growth, to me, are essential engines that have created and sustained our middle class for years. And I think one of the challenges of our, the way that our economy has grown is this, natural inclination toward efficiency and consolidation has sort of made a lot of those businesses, be the, franchise of, some larger thing or whatever it may be. Like I think about the hardware store that I grew up, was my
Oh
family's
yeah.
hardware store back where I grew up. Well, I mean, the only way they made it through big box expansion, was customer service. Like literally, my uncle was on the floor, every opening hour of that business, shaking hands, helping people out, being a source of both knowledge and just, community building that made that business or kept it successful for as long as it did in the midst of, terrible efficiencies, right? Like small businesses, like they are not efficient almost by definition because they just don't have the scale, you know.
Yeah.
But that doesn't in any way diminish their importance, both to those who are running them and founding them and working in them, but also to the communities where they are.
Well, and they don't just deliver a product. The big box, and there's a saying, that the big box is on its way out, boutique is back in. And I agree with that. That's a trend. But you mentioned something about customer service that I think is absolutely um, is critical, is that people were missing the experience. And it's not just going to buy a heater. It's going to get the experience and getting somebody to say, "Hey, you got this. Um, here's how you do it." And
Yeah,
that's the part. And it's interesting. And wow, this could be a whole nother topic for a whole nother hour long. Is how is that different than the West Coast, East Coast, as opposed to here in North Central Montana,
yeah,
where we crave that experience, whereas that urban environment is just like get in and get out.
yeah. Well, I think just to kind of follow on that, maybe not exactly in the way you're thinking, but I kind of have this thesis around trust relationships, right?
Oh,
Like
it's everything.
closest trust relationships are family. Then it's kind of like extended family. You can kind of think of the onion idea, right? You got community in there, but business and sort of economic exchange, like, I grow corn, you make fish hooks kind of thing. Like if I make crappy fish hooks or you make crappy fish hooks, I'm not going to buy them, right? So we lose that trust. Or if my corn's bad or whatever, like you're not
Right.
going to buy it. And so there's this fundamental trust relationship that is central to these smaller scale businesses that are kind of our community centers and community glue, if you will, that, the big box experience is different. It's not the same. Like there's almost a level of like, yeah, I figured I got it from there. It might be kind of crappy, so I'll just return it or whatever. Like there's no connection to it. Versus if you go to the local place and you talk to, Gary, who was the plumber for a bunch of years, and you're like, man, Gary, I'm really having problem figuring out like this connection. And I'm talking literally from personal experience doing this remodel
Yeah.
on my house. Like Gary was like, oh man, no, this is the thing you need right here. I'm like, oh my God, he's like, call me anytime. So sure enough, I call him up. I'm like, hey, I got this vent issue. What do you think I should do here? He's like, oh, here's the. And so now, like, where am I always going to go if I have that sort of issue that I need to address? I'm going to go talk to Gary, right? Like, it's that
You
level of
nailed it.
connection that makes
It's
this difference in terms of richness, like beyond the financial, but also like those are the businesses that support the little leagues, that
yeah.
give to the United Way, like do all the things that build
It's
community.
not just fiscally transactional, it's personally transactional.
That's right.
And that's the difference. And I won't say that the big box stores don't have their role. I
Oh
need my
gosh, yeah.
paper towels, and I don't need an emotionally gratifying experience to buy 24 rolls of paper towels or a 40
Right.
pound sack of dog food. Um, so they definitely have their place,
That's
and
right.
they can be economical, but um, the small business model and the medium business model is critical. And I think we're seeing that start to bounce back in this area, this
Yep.
region, and
Yep.
it makes me happy. Well, we went way over 20 minutes, but it's just so much fun. But I'll wrap it up with one final question. Um, what is your one nugget of advice to an aspiring entrepreneur? Because you kind of jumped out there and went right into the deep end of the pool. Well, you went to D.A. Davidson, so I won't say that you jumped off the 3 meter board. You kind of
No.
jumped off the 1 meter board,
Yeah.
but you departed a well-established company and you said, "Hey, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do this on my own."
Yeah.
Um, you learned you probably had to pick yourself up and dust yourself off a few times. What's the one thing real quick that you would tell somebody that's contemplating or has made the leap already?
Gosh, I mean, almost like where to start, right? There's just such a laundry list of things that I've learned along the way.
Overall philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that you can't be afraid of failure. Like you can't look at that as a reflection of your personal capacity or abilities. Like, there are a lot of really successful people who have gone through one, two, three, five, or 50 failures before they made it successful. And I remember when I was just starting out and trying to build a client base, going out and knocking on doors and talking to people. And this guy, like a buddy of mine shared with me some sales tapes and things because I was driving all over the state trying to build this book of business. And, the guy was like, yeah, I had, figured this. I knew my product inside and out. And he said he went and he talked to people like for 6 months and he got zero sales. He's like, what is going on? And he like literally dissected it 6 ways from Sunday, beat himself up, just could not figure it out. And finally it came to him. He's like, you know what I can do really well? I can get no. I can get no every single day, all day long. And guess what? I'm going to go see how many no's I can get. And he literally went out there and he just racked up the no's for a month before he got another sale. But it was one of those things. He's like, what am I good at? Like, focus on something positive, like, figure out that silver lining that helps you get through the hard times. Cause, that's just part of the whole game.
That's fantastic and a great example of that. Yeah, I don't know why it came to me. It popped in my head is, because I have the conversation about fail all the time. First attempt in learning is the acronym, right? Um, WD-40. It's because it was the 40th version of the water displacement formula that they were trying to develop.
Right.
So the first 39 times didn't work. But is there anybody that doesn't have a can of WD-40 in their garage? Not very many.
Yeah,
So every
that's
time I look at a can of WD-40, I go, well, okay, now I've overachieved and I fail far more than 39 times at certain things that I endeavor to do. But those are
right.
great words. I really appreciate that. So check out 45 North and find Bill. If are you national or are you primarily
Yep.
local?
No, we're national. Homestake.com is more of a kind of local regional outfit that really connects community oriented investors with small business investment opportunities. That's kind of what that company's all about. So yeah, check them out. It'd be great
All
to
right.
talk with more people.
Cool. Well, Bill, thanks for joining me today, and for everybody that joined us to navigating to success. I look forward to seeing you next time. Business Journeys Explored. I'm Jeff Carlton, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.